حي على الفلاح.
This is narrated by Al-Hakim. Hudayfa radiallahu anhu narrated that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, and then we just want really the end of this hadith, that the book of Allah will be lifted in a single night, so that not even a verse remains upon the earth. So, will the books physically be taken that have ayat of Qur'an in it? Or will the books remain physically, but when you open the pages are blank. The letters disappeared. Wallahu ta'ala alam. We don't know exactly. Allah Azza wa Jalla knows best. It doesn't matter if the pages became blank or the books disappeared off the shelves. What really matters is the Qur'an is not on earth. That's what matters. So in a single night, the Prophet said, the book of Allah will be lifted in a single night so that not even a verse remains upon the earth. And some people say, what about my Qur'an app? So there will only remain certain groups of people, such as the elderly, who will say, we heard our forefathers saying, La ilaha illallah, so we also say it. So then this hadith, this was Hudayfa ibn al-Yaman radiallahu anhu. He was mentioning this hadith towards the end of his life, meaning when he was surrounded by the tabi'een, more so than the companions of the Prophet. So one of the tabi'een, one of the people who was there, his name was Sila. So Sila says, he said, how will La ilaha illallah benefit them when they don't know what prayer is, nor fasting, nor the rights of Hajj, nor sadaqah, giving in charity? So Hudayfa either physically turned away from him or just ignored him. So he repeated it again. He said, how will La ilaha illallah benefit them? They don't know what salah is, or siyam, or the rights of Hajj, or sadaqah. And then Hudayfa a'rada anhu, again he turned away from him, radiallahu anhu, the companion turned away from him. And then he asked again. So then Hudayfa, he turned to him after the third one. فَقَالَ يَا صِلَةٌ تُنْجِيهِمْ مِنَ النَّارِ يَا صِلَةٌ تُنْجِيهِمْ مِنَ النَّارِ يَا صِلَةٌ تُنْجِيهِمْ مِنَ النَّارِ. It will save them from the hellfire. And he said it 3 times. Why did he say it 3 times? Because he asked 3 times. And the scholars said, at that point, there is nothing left from Islam besides La ilaha illallah. So it will save you from the hellfire at that point. But you can't today, with all the knowledge and all the things, say La ilaha illallah will be enough to save you from the hellfire. That's the difference between the two. Those indicate very end of time. So the hour will not be established until no one remains on earth who will say La ilaha illallah. That means it's very end of time. An interesting one here in Al-Adab al-Mufrad, narrated by Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, the hour will not be established until the people build houses which they adorn like the way clothes are embroidery. People will adorn their homes in a similar way. Now, what's interesting is that there's nothing wrong with designing and adorning your home. Let me put it this way. You live at the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and people have simple homes that, they didn't even have the concept of hanging a painting on a mud wall or anything like that. So the concept of designing a home didn't even exist really for them, So the Prophet ﷺ, all he's doing is he's mentioning a time in the future when people will be able to design their homes. Now we can put lights on our walls, and we can change the walls themselves, and put pillars, and put arches, and put paintings, and put those digital frames, and I don't know what. The point is just to say that this is how much the world will change, that people will adorn and design their homes the same way you would design a garment now. And that's all it is. It's not saying it's haram. It's not saying it's makruh. Next one, from Samurah ibn Jundub radiallahu anhu, narrated, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, the hour will not be established until the mountains are removed, and you will see great things which you've never seen before. What are these great things? And Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam didn't mention them. Just there are going to be a lot of amazing things that will happen. Now that doesn't mean the iPhone 15 coming out. Amazing things, like really amazing, not lame social media apps. The mountains will be removed from their places. What does that mean? It could be one of 2 explanations. Number 1, by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will move these mountains from their places. And sometimes you see videos of amazing things. There's a There's a video, I think it was in Italy, it was just the whole side of this huge mountain just sliding right off. Not volcanic eruptions, but mountains being removed from their places. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can cause that. 2, caused by human beings. Human beings removing mountains. Reclaimed land mostly, is mountains. It's interesting. If you look at, like for example, the Netherlands, Ireland actually has a lot of reclaimed land. Bahrain has a huge amount of reclaimed land. So basically, they do it differently though. In Bahrain, they take from the ocean bed and then come and pour it out on the surface again and extend the land. So the ocean gets deeper. But places that have mountains, St. Petersburg in Russia, formerly Leningrad, also a lot of reclaimed land. Hong Kong, I remember going to Hong Kong on the plane as we were getting closer to landing. You look out and all you see is just these mountains just being pushed into, like broken up and pushed into the waters to create more space, more land. Anyways, so it could be mountains being removed from their places, seeing amazing things. The Prophet didn't specify. Could be by Allah Azza wa Jal, could be by human beings moving mountains from their places. Next one, this one Abu Sa'id al-Khudri radiallahu anhu narrates, An-Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, by the one in whose hand is my soul, the hour will not be established until predatory animals will speak to humans. So that means it's going to happen, and it's going to be not just a one-time thing, but it's going to be quite common that this person, the wolf will speak to him, that person, the tiger will say something to him, the lion will say something to him. And what will they say? It doesn't matter, and who cares? That's not the point. It's not like, and if you tell your friend, today a tiger said something to me, then your friend will be like, well, I'm very curious to know what the tiger said. Like, shouldn't you be more curious that the tiger spoke aslan? So here it's saying, and until a person or speaks to, and of course it's a two-way conversation, to the tip of their whip and their sandal strap. And someone probably says, oh, what if they invent the eye shoe in the future that can speak to you, or the eye whip? What do you need a whip for? They're not going to produce a whip. The point is that if it's just something technological, there's nothing miraculous and from the signs of the hour about it. If it's just some device that you hold. But the person speaking to the tip of his whip, your shoe speaking back to you, and you speaking to it. Because it has to be a two-way conversation. Because if it's just a man speaking to his shoes, it's just a crazy person. All right? But if it's the shoe speaking back, then it's something from the signs of the hour, something out of the ordinary. And then his thigh will inform him of what his family did in his absence. And of course, I give an example of this one. People will say, oh, this is the cell phone. Because you put it here in this pocket, and you pull it out, and you talk to your family, and they tell you what happened when you left. But there's nothing miraculous. And does it make sense that the cell phone is paired in this hadith, or put in the same category as lions and tigers constantly speaking to people, inanimate objects speaking, shoes speaking, and then your cell phone, which is just a device that connects you to your family, and they tell you what happened in your absence. Doesn't really sit with those other three things, right? So, how? Allah Ta'ala A'lam. This is something in the future. But it is as the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, it is authentic, and we believe whatever is authentic from the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Now what if someone says, well, but you guys are just believing in this, you've got no evidence, doesn't make any sense. Of course it makes sense. Before I answer that, this is another hadith narrated by Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu. The Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he said, while a man was riding a cow. Anything strange about this hadith? Yes. The man is riding a cow. Why are you riding a cow, right? So the cow turns towards him and said, I have not been created for this purpose. I have been created for plowing. So it tells him, I'm not for riding, I'm for plowing the land. Then the Prophet ﷺ, added. He didn't just end the story there, but he added, I and Abu Bakr and Umar believe this in this story. You see? Because there's something not normal about it. The cow turns and speaks to this person. Hey, why are you riding me? I wasn't created for riding. I'm created for plowing the earth. So the Prophet says, I and Abu Bakr and Umar believe this story. Now, he didn't ask them, but he knows. So which category will you fall with? Before I explain the logic, before you know the explanation, Will you fall in the category of the Prophet ﷺ and Abu Bakr and Umar, or will you be with those other people who don't believe this story? Then the Prophet ﷺ went on. He said, a wolf caught a sheep, and when the shepherd chased it, the wolf said, who will be its guard on the day of wild beasts, when there will be no shepherd for it except me? And then the Prophet ﷺ narrated that, and he said, I and Abu Bakr and Umar also believe it, because the wolf is speaking now. All right, so how do we explain this? It's very simple. If someone says, well, this is not logical, or this is not scientific, like I explained many times that most people don't know what scientific means, and they use it very, very incorrectly. Are there animals on earth today that speak? And the answer, of course, is yes. And people think of, parrots and all kinds of birds that speak. And I know you've seen videos of pet dogs and cats speaking or saying a few words. Doesn't matter. The point is, birds are the most eloquent when it comes to speaking, even though they may not understand what they're saying, but birds speak. Who created birds? These animals, where did they come from? Who created them? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we're agreeing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created an animal and made it able to speak. Can Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala take an animal that He already created that doesn't speak and make it speak? Yes, and He'll make it speak German too. There's no problem whatsoever. Like, people try to make it look like they're logical. You're extremely illogical. If you believe in Allah Azza wa Jal, He can make anything speak. So what is not logical here? You understand the logic or not? Makes sense. But things that are like out of the ordinary and supernatural, which don't necessarily have to be phones and satellite dishes and things, but things that are supernatural, out of the ordinary, and we don't want to fall into this always interpreting things according to our present world. Another sign of the hour, the Prophet ﷺ mentioned, the hour will not be established until the people will be given a widespread rain, but nothing from the earth will grow forth. This is narrated by Imam Ahmad, and there's no timeline given here. So this could be any time in the future, or it could be now, but basically it will rain, but nothing from the earth will grow. There will be no barakah in rain.